What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Today I'm going to be looking at St. Maximus the Confessor, his Ad Thalassium number 42, which answers the question of Christ became sin. In Galatians, I'm pretty sure, it says Christ became sin. How does that make sense? How can someone who has no vice, is pure virtue, become sin, which is vice? Okay, we're looking. Maximus the Confessor. His name is Maximus the Confessor. He is an Eastern mystic theologian, and he has a Christocentric theology. He was involved in the Second Council of Constantinople, actually third one, sorry, of Constantinople. He argued against Severus of Antioch, I think it was, and Diotheletism, and yeah, he has very mystic theology. So sin. To answer, Christ became sin. Well, what is sin? Maximus says, how is it we are said to commit sin and know it, while the Lord became sin and did not commit or know it? How is it more serious to become sin and not know it than to commit sin and know it? So, a little bit of a tongue twister. But we commit sin and we know sin. Yeah. But the Lord became sin while he did not commit or know sin. Know in the sense of committing. And now Maximus is answering, how is it more serious to become sin and not know it than to commit sin and know it? So Christ became sin and didn't know it, and we commit sin and know it. So now he goes on to corruption from Adam, because whenever the question of sin comes about, you have to go to Adam, because that's when sin for humanity started. Originally, being corrupted from its natural design, Adam's free choice corrupted along with it our human nature and the grace of impassibility. Okay, so our human nature was corrupted by Adam's free choice. Now he goes on to basically answer the question. There was two sins. The first sin was the fall of free choice from good to evil, and the second was the innocent transformation of human nature from incorruption to corruption. So Maximus says that Adam committed two sins. The first sin was culpable when his free choice willingly rejected the good, and the second sin, occasioned by the first, flowed from the first, was innocent, since the human nature unwillingly put off its corruption. So now, that's basically the question answered. He'll go into more in depth, but he basically says that, well, there's two types of sins. The one Adam committed willingly, but also it's classified as sin, the human nature changing from incorruption to corruption. That is a sin as well. But the restoration, Christ rectifying this reciprocal corruption and alteration of our human nature by taking on the whole of our nature, even had in his assumed nature the liability to passions, which in his own exercise of free choice he adorned with incorruptibility. So Christ he was liable to passions, but from Christ's own free choice, he was adorned with incorruptibility. And Christ this is like from letter 101 from Gregory of Nazianzus, what he hasn't assumed, he hasn't healed. So what he has assumed, our human nature, he has healed. It is by virtue of this assumption, for this natural possibility, that he became sin for our sake, though he did not know any deliberate sin because of the immutability of his free choice. So, yeah, he became sin, as in he became that second sin, the innocent transformation of human nature from incorruption to corruption. So he's saying that Christ became that. He became man. He became sin. He became liable to passions, human nature, corrupt. Like he became like Adam. So yeah. Free choice. His free choice was incorruptible. He rectified our nature's liability to passions and turned the end of our nature's possibility, which is death, into the beginning of our natural transformation to incorruption. And then he gives cool typologies, I guess. So this is Adam. One man, Adam, turned voluntarily from the good. So Adam voluntarily ate of the apple, and human nature was changed from incorruption to corruption. One man, that is Christ, voluntarily stayed in the good, that is, he didn't commit any sins, and human nature underwent a restoration from corruption to incorruption. So it's a reversal. That's why he's called the second Adam, because he rectifies the first one's free choice, wrongdoing from free choice, I guess. The Lord did not know my sin, that is, the mutability of my free choice. Neither did he assume nor become my sin. He became the sin that I caused. That's the very important distinction. Because, as he said at the beginning, my sin is the sin that is the outcome of my free choice. So I sin by committing this vice or something. But he's saying, no, Christ didn't become a sin that you act. He became the sin that you cause. And the sin that Adam caused was the corruption of human nature. So he became man. It's just what Maximus is saying. He assumed the corruption of my human nature. That was a consequence of the mutability of my free choice. Assumption of the flesh now. He became a man, or a human being, naturally liable to passions, and used the sin that I caused, that is corruption, of human nature, that I caused to destroy the sin that I commit. So that's a very cool one as well. He splits the sin again. The sin that I caused, namely he became man, to destroy the sin that I commit. In Adam, act of freely choosing evil, incorruption was robbed since God thought it wasn't right for humans to have an immortal nature. So that's how he actually answers the question of, okay, why did Adam even have the chance to sin? Why couldn't he just have an immortal nature? Many people answer this. Cyril answers it, and Cyril says, if we are good by nature, what's the point of a crown if we don't work for it, if we're just good by nature? He says, if we're bad by nature, then what's the point of hell, because everybody's just going to go there. And he said it's not right for humans to have an immortal nature. So like for them, they don't need to work for it. They just get everything. Then there's no there's no crown, as Cyril was saying. In Christ, act of freely choosing good, the common scourge of our whole nature was taken away. And then the resurrection. At the resurrection of Christ, human nature was transformed into incorruption because his free choice was immutable. Hence, the mutation of human nature over to possibility, corruption, and death is the condemnation of Adam's deliberate sin. So Adam sins, that's the first sin. The corruption of human nature is the second sin. Christ becomes that second sin so that we can reverse that second sin and be changed from incorruption, or from corruption to incorruption. As he says here, man wasn't created with a corrupted nature. Rather, man invented and knew it, namely knew corrupted nature, since he created deliberate sin and through his disobedience. Yet, Christ took on this very condemnation of my deliberate sin, the possibility, corruptibility, and mortality of our nature. Christ died, that is the condemnation of sin. So, the conclusion. So, he answers very swiftly and sharply how Christ became sin. He became sin, this sin I caused, in terms of the possibility, corruptibility, and mortality of our nature. That is how he became sin. He became the possibility, corruptibility, and mortality of our nature. Deliberate sin was man committed first, separates us from God. That's Adam's act of disobedience, my act of disobedience, everybody's sin, deliberate sin. But the natural sin is what he calls it, is what the Lord became, corruptible. He became mortal of our nature so that we can be immortal. Although he was free from deliberate sin, Christ didn't sin deliberately, may very well hinder evil, since it does not allow that wickedness of free choice based on infirmity of nature to advance in concrete action. That was one of Maximus' last thoughts in his Ad Thalassium 42. He says it might not even be like so bad, because he says it might hinder evil, because it doesn't allow wickedness of free choice based on infirmity of nature to advance into concrete action. So yeah, that is Maximus the Confessor's answer to how Christ became sin. Christ became sin, namely because he became the corruptibility, possibility, and mortality of our nature, so that we can become immortal, uncorruptible, etc. Lord have mercy. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.